What I've come to realize is that our process of indoctrination has some very predictable consequences. And for me, it translated to, as I've already said, joining the Marine Corps, putting myself in a position to kill or be killed. What indoctrination does to a large degree, it starts to create separation. It starts to isolate you. Generally, how it manifests is in the form of nationalism. You know, in the case of America, Americans thinking their nation is the greatest in the world. And we end up not looking at other people in other places as our brothers and sisters. We look at them as others over there. And then we take it further and we have the propaganda machine, which marginalizes and villainizes people, as it's been doing to the Muslims and the Arab population for quite a long time now. And it further separates us and divides us. Over years and years and years of this, before you know it, you don't really have any concern about someone over there. You don't see them as your family. You don't see them as a brother or sister. You don't see your child over there. And that's the process of indoctrination, and it's very effective. But if you can break free from that process, if you can truly start to use your brain and really think for yourself critically rather than just repeating what you've been told, you'll start to see a pattern. And that pattern will give you a much greater light on what's happening in the world. And I believe, I have faith in humanity, that when people do break free from indoctrination and truly start to use their brains and really start to become more aware that the power within us, the humanity that we have, the greatest gift that we have, our humanity, starts to come alive. And as that humanity starts to develop and the consciousness starts to rise, what happens is you do start to see people over there as your family. When I look at the people in Palestine or Iraq or any other place where people are colonized and oppressed, when I see them, I see my family. I see my child. I see my child being denied access to education. I see my child living under terroristic situations, traumatized. I see a child who may be deprived of their mother or father because they're gone now. I see children who are dead and blown apart. And if I see people that way, how can I not do whatever I might be able to do to try and help them? It's not possible. If you do that, you will start to feel no respect for yourself. And I have made a decision to respect myself and to respect my fellow human beings because I see them as members of my human family. And that includes the Israeli people. I also see them as my brothers and sisters. And I pity them to a great degree because they are sacrificing that most precious thing that we have, which is our humanity. And they don't even know it. They're just being conditioned, being used, dupes, just like I was, just like all sorts of people around the world are used by their governments, by their so-called leaders. It's a pattern, but despite the cynical popularity that exists in our world today, where people simply satisfy themselves by saying the world has always been this way, the conflict in Israel and Palestine is a religious one, these are lies, effectively. The reason why we have any freedom in this world today is because people, beautiful people, against all odds, throughout the ages, have stood up time and time and time again, oftentimes being brutalized, being imprisoned, having their families brutalized or killed, or themselves losing their lives. People throughout the ages have done that very thing, whether it was the struggle for civil rights in America, the struggle for women's rights, the struggle for any cause, union rights, all of it had people, most of whose names we'll never read, that aren't in the history books, who stood up, common, everyday people, working class people. I know about those people, and I'm quite sure that if more people learned and understood the truth about how many of these people have stood up and did things so that we could have a semblance of freedom, that they too would feel an obligation to honor those who have given us what we so often take for granted. And I've been inspired by these people, and I see more and more people today. I think we are at a point in history where the consciousness is rising faster than ever, despite the fact that there are tons of people out there that are simply watching X Factor and American Idol and reading these ridiculous tabloids and concerning themselves with things that really don't matter. There is a growing number of people who are becoming politicized, engaged, and active. And I am genuinely inspired by what I'm seeing around the world. I know that if we get together and act intelligently, in a disciplined, intelligent, united, rather fearless way, that we can affect all the change that we want in this world, including the ending of the Palestinian-Israeli conflict, the occupation of Iraq and Afghanistan, and oppression in all parts of the world where people are struggling, largely due to our lack of will so far in the Western world. But I see that changing, and I really genuinely believe that a better world is in the making, and it's ours to decide, and if we make up our mind, we'll have it before we know it.
When I talked to you on the phone, and the first thing you said was brother, you called me brother. You never met me before, and I was very sad afterwards. It's like there was something beautiful in it. You just cut right through. It's a word we don't usually use with each other much.
No. Yeah. I mean, I called Israelis my brother or sister as well when I was there, while I was being imprisoned and beaten. I still see them as my brother, and I see you as my brother. Absolutely, it's not some ploy. Not only do I see it, you are. You are my brother, as are the Israelis, as are the Palestinians. We live in one human family, and the day that we start treating each other as such is the day that we'll have a better world. But as I said before, we go through a process of indoctrination that creates all sorts of necessary illusions that prevent us from seeing the truth, which is that person over there who is suffering, you're suffering too. Whether you know it or not, subconsciously, you're suffering too. Injustice anywhere, to quote Martin Luther King, injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. And it's absolutely true. And, it may seem like a difficult path to take, to become engaged and start to really become active. And there are certainly some risks involved in doing that. And it does require extra effort. But I have experienced in becoming engaged the most liberation I've ever felt from anything in my life, the most liberating kind of existence of all. I don't fear the consequences of what I'm doing. I know that if I were to die tomorrow, that no one should cry an extra tear for me. I've lived a rich life, a very rich life, and it is exactly because I have exercised my conscience and I have done what I felt was right. Not always making the right choice, but generally following my heart, doing what I felt was right, and I've been so richly rewarded. It's a liberating thing, and it's the most rewarding thing that anyone can involve themselves in there. A lot of wise people throughout history who all in their own way have effectively said that happiness, which is really what we're striving for, we're conditioned to think that happiness is contingent upon, for instance, how much money you can make, how many material possessions you can collect, how much land you own, and all this kind of stuff. Granted, nobody would want to live in poverty. We all have basic needs, but money, as we can see from so many filthy rich people, is not actually the defining factor of how you get happy, become happy. The key to happiness, in truth, is the opposite of what we're told. The key to happiness is what you can give. And the more you're giving, the more happiness you will find. And that is quite revolutionary. And it would change the entire way the world sees itself, the way we see ourselves, if we thought that way. And again, we would solve all of our problems very, very quickly if we started to see it that way. Because we have tremendous capacity to give. We do. And we don't take advantage of that blessing. Oftentimes we get caught in that trap of accumulating money and possessions. And that's not going to make you happy.